Chicago in October smelled like wet concrete and exhaust fumes. I pushed through the revolving door of the Wexler building, tugging my jacket tighter against the cold drizzle that had started an hour ago. The meeting had gone well. Better than expected, actually. 3 hours of translating complex legal documents for a multinational firm, and they'd already mentioned wanting to extend the contract into next quarter. My laptop sat upstairs on the conference room table. I'd grab it tomorrow morning on my way to the next appointment. Too tired to go back up now, and honestly, my brain needed the break from screens and technical jargon. The crosswalk signal blinked white. I stepped off the curb, mentally calculating whether I had time to finish the Portuguese contract revision before Jessica's birthday dinner on Saturday. Probably, if I worked through. Movement caught my peripheral vision. A man in an expensive charcoal suit stepped directly into the intersection from the opposite corner, phone pressed to his ear, head tilted in concentration. Completely unaware, the truck appeared from nowhere. Not true. It had been there, barreling down the street at a speed that screamed wrong. The traffic light glowed red. Steady, unmistakable red, but the massive vehicle wasn't slowing. Time fractured into crystalline fragments. The man's polished shoes on wet asphalt, the truck's grille reflecting streetlight. My bag slipping from my shoulder as I lunged forward. Move! The word tore from my throat, but I was already in motion. My hands hit his chest, shoving with every ounce of strength in my 5'5" frame. He was solid, immovable, until suddenly he wasn't. We went down hard. The pavement rushed up to meet us, but at the last second he twisted, taking the brunt of the impact. His arms locked around me, pulling me against him as we rolled. The truck's windwake slapped my face. Close, so terrifyingly close. Gravel bit into my knee through torn fabric. My right wrist bent wrong, sending white-hot pain shooting up my forearm. Then silence. Just the hiss of tires on wet road fading into distance. His chest rose and fell beneath my cheek. Expensive fabric, silk or something close. The scent of cedar and something darker, richer, clung to him. My heart hammered so violently I thought my ribs might crack. Are you hurt? His voice rumbled through his chest before reaching my ears. Accented, but I couldn't place it yet. Controlled, despite what had just happened. I pushed myself up, pain lancing through my wrist. Am I hurt? You almost got yourself killed. He sat up with fluid grace that shouldn't have been possible after that fall. Dark eyes found mine, assessing. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and a thin scar cutting through the right side of his chin. Handsome in a way that felt dangerous. You saved my life. You walked into traffic like a complete idiot. The words tumbled out in Italian before I could stop them. Adrenaline made me reckless. What kind of person crosses the street without looking? Did your mother never teach you basic survival skills? His eyebrows lifted. When he responded, his Italian was flawless. Regional accent placing him somewhere near Milan. My mother taught me many things. Apparently, awareness wasn't among them. I blinked. Great. Of course he spoke Italian. Of course. Your wrist. He reached for my arm. His hands were warm despite the cold night, touch careful as he examined the swelling already forming. And your knee is bleeding. I looked down. The fabric of my slacks had torn, revealing a scraped, bloody mess. The pain chose that moment to fully register, sharp and insistent. I'm fine. I need to get... A vehicle appeared at the curb. Black SUV. Windows tinted so dark they looked like portals into nothing. 3 more vehicles materialized behind it, boxing in the intersection. Doors opened in synchronized precision. Men emerged. 4 of them from the first vehicle alone, all dressed in black, all moving with purpose. The one who approached us first had silver threading through dark hair, and moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently. Boss. The word was quiet. Urgent. His eyes swept over the man I'd pushed, cataloging every detail. Are you hurt? Boss. Ice crystallized in my stomach. The man beside me stood, extending a hand to help me up. I'm unharmed, Franco. Thanks to... He glanced at me, question in his gaze. Hannah. My voice came out smaller than intended. Thanks to Hannah. He didn't release my hand once I was standing. She needs medical attention. I really don't. You're bleeding and your wrist is swelling. His tone left no room for argument. Franco, take her to Dr. Castellano. Wait, I can't just... More men had appeared. Where had they all come from? 2 had positioned themselves at the intersection, redirecting the minimal late-night traffic. Another spoke rapidly into a radio. The efficiency was military grade. This wasn't normal. Normal people didn't have armed escorts. Normal people didn't have teams that materialized from shadows. Miss Hannah. Franco's voice held firm politeness. Please, let us ensure you're all right. I'll get a cab. I live nearby. I insist. The man in the suit, the one I'd saved, stepped closer. His eyes held mine, and I saw something there that made my pulse skip. Not threat exactly. Promise, maybe. You risked yourself for a stranger. Allow me to ensure that risk hasn't left you injured. The SUV's rear door stood open, waiting. I tested my weight. The wrist spiked pain up my arm, and my knee wobbled. My phone was still under a parked car, and my ID was somewhere in the crosswalk. Running meant limping blind with no way to call anyone. Every instinct screamed to run, but my bag still lay in the street, contents scattered. My phone had skidded under a parked car, and honestly, shock was setting in, making my legs feel disconnected from my body. Just medical attention. Then I go home. Of course. He gestured toward the vehicle. The interior smelled like leather and something I couldn't identify. Clean. Expensive. The seats wrapped around me like a luxury I'd never experienced. The man slid in beside me. Franco took the front passenger seat. The driver never turned around. We pulled into traffic smoothly. Through the partition, I heard Franco speaking in rapid Italian. The words filtered through my translator's brain automatically. Too close. Someone will answer for this. Police are already at the scene, the driver responded. Standard procedure, traffic accident, brake failure. Make sure that's exactly what they believe. Franco's voice dropped lower. And find out who owned that truck. I want names by morning. My hands started shaking. I pressed them against my thighs, trying to hide it. The man beside me noticed anyway. He said nothing, but I felt his attention shift, felt the weight of his gaze. Where are we going? I managed. Somewhere safe, he answered. Somewhere we can ensure you're truly all right. I don't even know your name. He was silent for a long moment. Then, Matteo. Just a name. But the way Franco's shoulders tensed at the sound of it told me everything I needed to know. I'd saved someone important, someone powerful, someone dangerous, and now I was in a car with armed men, driving into a Chicago night that suddenly felt full of shadows I'd never noticed before. Consciousness returned in fragments, silk sheets against my skin, the distant hum of machinery, a smell I couldn't place, antiseptic mixed with something floral. My eyes opened to unfamiliar darkness. Not my apartment. Definitely not my apartment. The ceiling soared too high, painted in soft gray that caught light from somewhere I couldn't see. My right wrist throbbed with dull insistence, wrapped in pristine white bandaging that extended halfway to my elbow. Panic flickered. I sat up too fast, and the room tilted. Easy. A man's voice, calm and professional. He materialized from a chair I hadn't noticed, older, maybe 60, with wire-rimmed glasses and salt and pepper hair. You're safe, Miss Reed. I'm Dr. Castellano. Where am I? My throat felt raw. A secure location. He approached, checking my pupils with a penlight that made me wince. You fainted approximately 3 hours ago. Adrenaline crash combined with shock. Perfectly normal physiological response to near-death experience. 3 hours. I glanced at my bare wrist, then spotted a clock on the nightstand. 3:17 a.m. My phone. I need my phone. My friend Jessica. She was expecting me to. Already handled. Franco appeared in the doorway like he'd been summoned. In the better lighting, I could see him more clearly. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, a man who missed nothing. Your belongings are here. We'll return everything momentarily. Dr. Castellano finished his examination, checking my bandaged wrist with gentle fingers. Mild sprain, no fracture. Keep it elevated and iced for the next 48 hours. Your knee has been cleaned and dressed. The scrapes are superficial, should heal within a week. Right. The knee. I looked down at the bandage visible beneath the hem of borrowed sweatpants that definitely weren't mine. Who changed my clothes? Female staff member. The doctor assured me. Your garments were torn and bloodied. These are temporary until you can retrieve your own. He left with a nod, and Franco entered carrying my bag. My phone sat on top, screen dark. "Jessica?" I asked, reaching for it. "Waiting for your call. We haven't contacted anyone on your behalf." I unlocked the phone. 17 missed calls. 12 from Jessica. 5 from unknown numbers. My stomach knotted as I dialed. She answered before the first ring finished. "Hannah? Oh my God, where are you? I've been calling for hours. I almost called the police." "I'm okay. I'm so sorry, Jess. Something happened, an accident. I'm fine, but I can't really explain right now." "What kind of accident? Are you hurt? Do you need me to come get you?" I glanced at Franco, who watched without expression. "No, I'm safe. I need to handle some things. I'll explain later, I promise." "I'm sorry I scared you." The lie tasted bitter. But what was I supposed to say? That I'd saved a man who turned out to be some kind of crime boss and was now in his, safe house? Compound. Jessica's concern bled through the phone. "You're sure you're okay?" "I'm sure. I'll call you tomorrow. Or later today, technically." We said goodbye, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. She knew me too well. "I also need to get my laptop," I told Franco, setting the phone down. "Left it at the Wexler building, 15th floor conference room. I need it for work. We'll arrange retrieval in the morning. Mr. Grimaldiro would like to speak with you now." Of course he would. I stood, testing my weight on my injured knee. Tender but manageable. Let me guess. Not really optional. Franco's expression might have been amusement. Hard to tell. He's been concerned about your well-being. The suite opened into a hallway that belonged in an architectural magazine. Polished hardwood. Artwork that looked original. Lighting designed to showcase rather than illuminate. Franco led me through a series of turns that I tried to memorize and failed. We stopped at double doors. He knocked once, then pushed them open. The office beyond was masculine and precise. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Chicago's skyline, still glittering despite the hour. Matteo stood silhouetted against them, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that my exhausted brain automatically translated. "I don't care what it takes. Find out who owned that vehicle before sunrise." He turned as we entered, ending the call without preamble. In better light, I could see him properly. Tall, easily over 6 feet. The expensive suit from earlier had been replaced by dark slacks and a white shirt with rolled sleeves. The casualness somehow made him more intimidating, not less. "Hannah?" He gestured to a leather chair facing his desk. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck. Metaphorically speaking. I sat because my knee was complaining." "Can I leave now?" "Direct. I appreciate that." He moved to his desk but didn't sit. "Unfortunately, the situation is more complicated than a simple accident." Franco produced a tablet, tapping the screen before handing it to me. Security footage played in grainy black and white. The intersection. The truck approaching. Me shoving Matteo. The vehicle swerving. Actually swerving toward us at the last second. "Watch the driver," Matteo said quietly. I rewound, focusing. The driver's face was visible for maybe 2 seconds. Young, maybe 30. Eyes locked on Matteo with unmistakable intent. No panic. No attempt to brake. Just acceleration. "That's not an accident," Matteo finished. "No. Someone attempted to kill me tonight. And you, Hannah Reed, age 27, freelance translator specializing in contract analysis and legal documentation, living at 1847 West Addison, currently between major clients, but with 3 active projects, happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Ice crystallized in my veins. You investigated me. I protect my interests. You saved my life. That makes you relevant to those interests. You mean I'm a witness?" The words came out flat. "The police are already at the scene." Franco spoke from his position by the door. "They'll conclude mechanical failure. Brake line malfunction. The truck's registration traces to a shell corporation that will lead nowhere. But someone wanted Mr. Grimaldiro dead, and that someone might have noticed you." I looked between them. "Might have?" Matteo finally sat, leaning back with a control that suggested he never moved without purpose. Multiple security cameras captured the incident. Some are public. If whoever orchestrated this is thorough, they'll review that footage. They'll see you save me, and they might wonder if you're someone I know. Someone important to me, but I'm not. I'm nobody. You acted on instinct. I understand. But perception matters more than reality in my world. His eyes held mine. I'm offering protection. Discreet surveillance for a few days while we determine if you're truly at risk. And if I refuse, then you walk out that door, return to your life, and hope I'm wrong about the danger. He spread his hands. The choice is yours. I thought about my apartment. The flimsy lock. The fire escape that didn't quite reach the ground. The neighbor who left her windows open at night. How long? A week at most. Less if we identify and neutralize the threat quickly. I have work, deadlines, clients who depend on me. You'll have internet, privacy, everything you need to work remotely. Consider it a temporary security measure. Every instinct screamed to run. But Franco's words echoed in my head. Someone wanted Matteo dead. Someone organized enough to acquire a truck, find his location, execute an attack in downtown Chicago. Someone who might come looking for witnesses. Okay, I heard myself say. But I need my laptop and clothes, and you're going to explain exactly what kind of protection we're talking about. Fair terms. Matteo nodded to Franco. Take her home. Let her gather what she needs. 2 men minimum for escort. The drive back to my apartment happened in tense silence. I sat in the back of yet another black SUV, watching familiar streets pass in pre-dawn darkness. Franco had handed me my bag, my phone. Everything intact except my sense of security. My building looked shabbier than usual in the harsh glow of streetlights. Franco and another man, younger, broader, accompanied me up the stairs. They waited outside while I packed a quick bag. Laptop, charger, clothes for a week, toiletries. Jessica's framed photo from my nightstand. The normalcy of the items felt absurd. I powered up my laptop long enough to email my client from the Wexler contract, apologizing for the delay and attaching the completed translation. Then I sent quick messages to my other active clients, explaining a family emergency required me to work remotely for several days. Not a lie, exactly. My family of 1 was having an emergency. Franco was on his phone when I emerged. He ended the call as I locked my door. Everything you need? For now. The young man took my bag without asking. They flanked me down the stairs, and I realized this was it. This was what protection looked like. Constant surveillance. Loss of privacy. All because I'd reacted without thinking. The SUV waited at the curb, engine running. As we pulled away, I spotted another vehicle across the street. Sedan, dark color, 2 occupants. When we turned the corner, it followed. Is that ours? Franco confirmed. You're covered from multiple angles. I leaned back, closing my eyes. Somewhere in this city, someone had tried to commit murder. And somehow, impossibly, I'd stopped them. Now I was tangled in whatever web Matteo Grimaldiro had woven, protected by men with guns and secrets. My phone buzzed. Jessica again. I'd deal with her tomorrow. Or today. Whatever this nightmare qualified as. Back at the compound, the same suite waited. I set up my laptop on the desk, checked my email, tried to pretend this was normal. Outside the windows, Chicago began waking up. Delivery trucks, early commuters. Life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I just didn't know how much yet. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. I worked from the compound, translating contracts and analyzing documents while watching Chicago through windows that didn't open. Jessica called twice. I kept the conversations brief, vague. Yes, I was fine. No, I couldn't explain yet. The lies built up like sediment. Franco appeared at my door on the 3rd evening without knocking. His expression told me everything before his mouth opened. There's been another incident. My stomach dropped. Is Matteo alive? Barely. He stepped inside, closing the door with deliberate care. Someone planted a bomb in his primary vehicle. C4, professionally rigged to the ignition. He changed cars at the last minute. Instinct, he said. The explosion destroyed half his private garage. I sat down hard on the bed. When? 2 hours ago. The property is isolated, 40 miles outside the city. Our team contained it before emergency services arrived. Official report will list it as a gas leak. Franco pulled out his phone, swiping through images. But this wasn't external, Hannah. Whoever did this knew which car he'd be using, knew the exact timing of his departure. That information doesn't leave our inner circle. The photos showed twisted metal, blackened concrete, destruction that should have killed someone. Would have killed someone if luck hadn't intervened. Internal, I said quietly. You think it's someone inside his organization? I know it is. He pulled up a different set of images. And we have another problem. You. The first photo showed me leaving a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. The second caught me at a crosswalk, phone to my ear. The third was taken from a vehicle, capturing me through my own living room window as I worked at my desk. These aren't yours, I said. My voice sounded distant. No. We noticed them yesterday, picked up the surveillance this morning. Different vehicles, different operators, professional tale. Whoever wants Mateo dead knows you saved him, and they're tracking your movements. Cold spread through my chest. They think I'm important to him, or they're considering using you as leverage. Either way, you're exposed. This apartment isn't defensible. You need to move to the estate tonight. I can't just disappear. I have clients expecting deliveries, deadlines. Which matter more than staying alive? The bluntness hit like a slap. I looked at the photos again, at myself captured without knowledge or consent, at the proof that strangers had been following me, watching me, waiting for an opportunity. My friend Jessica. She'll panic if I vanish. So tell her what you can without compromising security. Franco's tone softened slightly. We're not asking you to disappear forever. Just until we identify and neutralize the threat. And how long will that take? As long as necessary. I wanted to argue, to insist this wasn't my problem, that I'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the photos spoke louder than my protests. Someone dangerous knew my face, my address, my routine. I need to pack properly this time. And I'm emailing my clients tonight, telling them I'll be working remotely for the next 2 weeks minimum. Franco nodded. 30 minutes. Pack for extended stay. We leave before dark. He stationed himself outside while I moved through my apartment in controlled chaos. Laptop, chargers, enough clothes for 2 weeks, my translation references, toiletries. I drafted quick emails to my 3 active clients. Explaining a family emergency required me to relocate temporarily, but I'd remain fully available electronically. Professional, apologetic, vague. Then I texted Jessica. Need to leave town for work security issue. Can't explain over text. I'm safe. We'll call when I can. Please don't worry. Love you. Her response came immediately. What? Call me now. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Coward's choice, but I couldn't lie to her voice to voice. Not again. The estate waited beyond Chicago's edge, accessed through gates that whispered open at our approach. I'd barely noticed the property in darkness 3 nights ago. Now, in fading daylight, I saw it properly. Stone walls, manicured grounds, security cameras angled to cover every approach. Not a home. A fortress disguised as one. The suite they gave me made my entire apartment look like a closet. King bed with linens that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Sitting area with leather furniture. Bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. And most importantly, a desk positioned by windows overlooking gardens lit by strategic floodlights. Internet password is on the desk, Franco said from the doorway. Kitchen is fully stocked if you need anything. Mateo would like you to join him for dinner at 8 if you're comfortable. Do I have a choice? Always. But I think you'll want to hear what he has to say. He left me alone with my bags and a view of grounds patrolled by men who moved like shadows. I unpacked methodically, establishing routine as an anchor. Laptop set up, charger plugged in, files organized. My phone showed 6 missed calls from Jessica, and a voicemail I wasn't ready to hear. Work first. Panic later. At 7:45, I showered and changed into clean jeans and a rust-colored sweater. Not fancy, but presentable. A staff member I hadn't met knocked precisely at 8, offering to escort me to dinner. The dining room continued the estate's theme. Elegant but understated. Power that didn't need to announce itself. Mateo stood when I entered, and I noticed immediately what I'd missed before. He moved with careful precision, favoring his left side slightly. You're hurt. Minor burns from the explosion. Nothing serious. He gestured to the chair across from him. Thank you for joining me. A woman appeared with wine, pouring without asking. She disappeared as silently as she'd come. Franco showed me the photos, I said, skipping pleasantries. The ones of me being followed. Yes. I apologize for dragging you into this. Bit late for apologies. Who are they? Matteo studied his wine glass. That's what I'm trying to determine. The bomb was sophisticated, military-grade explosive, professional installation, someone with resources and access to my schedule. Internal betrayal. So it appears. He looked up, meeting my eyes. Which is why I need you here. Safe. Until I identify who's trying to kill me. And then what happens to me? Then you return to your life. With compensation for the disruption and assurance that you're no longer a target. I laughed, harsh and short. You really think it's that simple? That I can just go back to translating contracts like none of this happened? No. I think you're intelligent enough to understand necessity. His voice stayed level. You saved my life. I'm returning the favor by ensuring yours isn't forfeit because of it. The wine tasted expensive, complex. I took another sip, buying time to organize my thoughts. Franco said you think it's someone you trust, someone close, someone with access to information that should be restricted. Matteo's jaw tightened. I've built this organization on loyalty. To discover that loyalty is false, that someone I've protected and elevated would rather see me dead. He stopped himself, control slipping back into place. Tell me about your work, he said, shifting gears. Franco mentioned you translate for multinational firms. The sudden pivot threw me. Legal documents, mostly. Contracts, compliance paperwork, due diligence files. I work in 6 languages. His eyebrows rose. 6? English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, German. I was working toward Japanese before. I gestured vaguely at everything. Before this. And you do analysis beyond simple translation? Document review. I can spot inconsistencies, fraudulent clauses, terms that don't align across language versions. Companies pay me to find the problems before they become lawsuits. Interest lit his expression, genuine curiosity replacing the careful mask. Say something in French. The request surprised me. Quoi? Maintenant? He answered in flawless Parisian French. Your accent is excellent. Where did you study? We slipped into French naturally, discussing linguistics and the peculiarities of Romance languages versus Germanic ones. Somewhere between courses, the tension eased. Not disappeared, but transformed into something less hostile. You're not what I expected, Matteo said, switching back to English as dessert appeared. What did you expect? Someone more frightened, more willing to simply accept protection without questions. Would you be? No. The admission came with that almost smile I'd seen before, which is why I find you interesting. The word hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to examine. I should get back to work, I said, pushing away from the table. I have a contract revision due tomorrow. Of course. He stood as I did. Hannah. I meant what I said. You're safe here. Whatever's coming, you won't face it alone. Walking back through corridors that already felt less foreign, I turned his words over in my mind. Safe. Alone. As if either concept still had meaning in a world where strangers planted bombs and followed me through streets I'd walked 1,000 times. In my suite, I opened my laptop and lost myself in Portuguese legal terminology until my eyes burned. Jessica's voicemail stayed unheard, a weight I'd carry until I found courage to face it. Outside my windows, men patrolled gardens lit against the dark. Inside, I was protected, trapped, and terrifyingly uncertain which concerned me more. The estate became my prison and sanctuary in equal measure. I established routines to maintain sanity. Mornings belonged to work, translating documents, while sunlight filtered through windows that overlooked gardens I wasn't allowed to walk alone. My clients never suspected I was sending their contracts from a compound guarded by armed men, who nodded respectfully when I passed. Jessica finally accepted my vague explanations. Work emergency, security protocols, temporary relocation. The lies came easier each time I repeated them, which worried me more than the lies themselves. Dinners with Matteo became regular when his schedule allowed. We'd sit across from each other in that formal dining room, conversation drifting from linguistics to philosophy, to the peculiar challenges of running an organization built on fear and loyalty. He never called it what it was. Never said the word that hung between us like smoke. But I knew. The men who patrolled. The deference everyone showed him. The careful way Franco reported situations that clearly involved violence. Matteo Grimaldiro wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in ways that made my translations of corporate merger agreements seem quaint. One evening, 5 days after I'd moved to the estate, he shared something unexpected. I was 25 when my father died. His wine glass caught candlelight, casting red shadows. Assassinated by a rival faction trying to expand into our territory. They thought killing him would create chaos. Opportunity. Instead, it unified everyone under me. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. Don't be. He was a brutal man who taught me brutality. But he also taught me that loyalty matters more than fear, that reputation is currency, that showing weakness gets you killed. He set down his glass. I've tried to be different, smarter, less reliant on violence as the first solution. Is it working? Ask me again when we find who's trying to kill me. The darkness in his tone sent ice through my chest. 2 nights later, Matteo hosted a formal dinner with his inner circle. I wasn't supposed to attend, but he insisted, saying my presence would be noticed if I hid. Better to appear as exactly what I claimed to be. A translator he'd befriended. Someone under temporary protection. Nothing more significant. The dining room filled with men who moved like predators dressed in expensive suits. Franco made introductions I struggled to remember. Names and faces that meant nothing to me, but clearly carried weight in Matteo's world. Sergio Verciani arrived last, and the room's energy shifted. He was handsome in a way that felt constructed, each smile calculated for maximum effect. When he greeted Matteo, I saw something flicker between them. History, complication, family resemblance around the eyes. Cousin, Sergio said, embracing Matteo with what looked like genuine warmth. You didn't mention we'd have such lovely company tonight. His attention turned to me, appraising and dismissive simultaneously. I'd been evaluated and categorized in seconds. Hannah is my guest, Matteo said simply. She's staying here while we resolve some security concerns. Of course. Sergio's smile widened. Any friend of the family is protected by the family. The way he said it made protection sound like a threat. Anthony Ricchetti sat across from me, older, perhaps 50, with nervous energy that manifested in constant small movements. He adjusted his glasses twice in the first 5 minutes. When Sergio spoke, Anthony's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. When their eyes met, Anthony looked away first, always. Franco, positioned near Matteo, was the only one who seemed genuinely at ease. He ate methodically, participated in conversation when addressed, but spent most of the meal observing. Like me, he was cataloging everyone's behavior. The conversation flowed around topics I half understood. Territory disputes, revenue streams from legitimate businesses, carefully coded references to operations I suspected weren't legal. Through it all, Sergio held court, charming and charismatic, while Anthony grew progressively more uncomfortable, his forehead developing a slight sheen of sweat, despite the room's controlled temperature. I excused myself early, claiming fatigue. Matteo walked me to the door, a courtesy that felt both protective and possessive. What did you think? He asked quietly. Your cousin doesn't like me. My cousin doesn't like anyone who has my attention. His hand brushed my lower back. Brief contact that sent warmth spreading through me. Sleep well, Hannah. 3 nights later, everything shifted. I was reviewing a contract when I heard voices raised in the hallway. Not quite shouting, but close. Then Matteo's door slammed with enough force to rattle my windows. I shouldn't have gone to check. Should have stayed in my suite. Maintained boundaries. Instead, I found myself in the corridor, following the sound of movement to his study. The door stood ajar. Through the gap, I saw him at the window, shoulders rigid, one hand pressed against the glass. Blood dripped from his other hand onto the pristine floor. Matteo? He turned. A cut sliced across his left cheekbone, maybe 2 inches long, bleeding freely. His shirt collar was torn, knuckles on his right hand split and raw. Leave. The word came out flat, emotionless. You're hurt. I said leave. Instead, I pushed into the room, closing the door behind me. Where's your first aid kit? Hannah, bathroom. I'll find it myself. His bathroom was marble and chrome, impersonal, except for the medical supplies in the cabinet that suggested violence was routine. I grabbed what I needed and returned to find him still standing at the window, jaw clenched. Sit down. I don't need... Sit. Down. Something in my tone made him obey. He sank into the leather chair, tilting his face up as I approached with antiseptic and gauze. This close, I could see the anger burning behind his controlled expression. Could smell copper, and his cologne mixing into something intoxicating and dangerous. I cleaned the cut carefully, conscious of every breath, every tiny flinch he suppressed. His eyes never left my face. What happened? I asked, applying butterfly strips to hold the edges together. A captain questioned my judgment. Publicly, in front of men who need to believe I'm infallible. His voice was quiet, deadly. I reminded him why questioning me is unwise. With your fists, with my authority. The fists were just emphasis. My hands trembled slightly as I finished bandaging. We were too close. I could feel heat radiating from him, see his pulse jumping in his throat. When I reached to clean his split knuckles, his free hand caught my wrist. Hannah. Just my name, but loaded with everything we'd been carefully not acknowledging. The tension that built every time we shared a meal. The way his eyes followed me when I moved through rooms. The dangerous pull I felt toward a man I should fear. This is a bad idea, I whispered. Terrible idea, he agreed. Neither of us moved away. His thumb traced circles on my inner wrist, finding my racing pulse. My breath caught. Time stretched, fragile and electric. The door opened without warning. Franco's voice cut through the moment like a blade. We have a problem. Matteo released me, composure snapping back into place. What kind of problem? The financial audit. You need to see this now. I stepped back, putting professional distance between us. My pulse still hammered, skin still tingling where he'd touched me. Franco produced a tablet, pulling up spreadsheets and transaction records. The preliminary audit found unauthorized transfers. Millions being moved through accounts that shouldn't exist. Someone with high-level system access has been diverting funds for at least 6 months. Matteo's expression went cold. How much? 8 million so far. Possibly more we haven't found yet. Who has that level of access? Administration only. You, me, Anthony, Sergio. Franco's jaw tightened. And the transfers are structured to look legitimate. Someone who knows our systems intimately. Show me everything. Franco spread documents across the desk. I should have left, but curiosity and something else, professional instinct maybe, kept me rooted. Can I see those? The words escaped before I thought them through. Both men looked at me. Matteo nodded slowly. I studied the documents, falling into the analytical mode that made me good at my job. Transaction descriptions, payee names, routing codes. Something nagged at me. Pattern recognition firing. These supplier names. I pointed to a series of payments. The formatting is inconsistent. Look, this one uses LLC, but this one uses LLC with periods. And the grammar in these descriptions, it's technically correct, but the word choice is off. See how this one says, for provision of services rendered, but this one says, for rendering of provided services? Native English speakers wouldn't structure it that way. Matteo leaned closer, studying what I'd indicated. Meaning? Meaning these aren't real companies. Someone created shell corporations and tried to make them look legitimate, but they didn't maintain consistency. These are fraudulent, money laundering through fake vendors. Silence stretched. Then Matteo looked at Franco. Pull every transaction to these companies. I want names, dates, who authorized each payment. And find out who created these vendor accounts in our system. Franco nodded, already moving. The door closed behind him, leaving us alone again. Matteo turned to me. Something new in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You saw in 5 minutes what our accountants missed for months. It's what I do. Finding inconsistencies in documents. It's more than that. He stood, closing the distance between us again. You're more than that. This time when he touched me, cupping my face with careful fingers, I didn't pull away. When his mouth found mine, I kissed him back. All the accumulated tension of the past days igniting. His hands tangled in my hair. Mine clutched his shoulders. And for those suspended moments, nothing existed except heat and need, and the dangerous thrill of choosing something I knew would change everything. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back. "I should go," I managed. "You should," but his arms didn't release me. "Matteo, I know." He pressed his forehead to mine. "This complicates everything." Everything was already complicated. A laugh escaped him, rough and genuine. "Fair point." I forced myself to step back, to create space before I lost the ability to think clearly. Find whoever's stealing from you. Figure out who's trying to kill you. Then we can discuss what this is. And if I said I already know what this is, then you're dangerously optimistic for a man in your position. I left before he could respond, before I could change my mind. But his taste lingered on my lips, and I knew, with certainty that terrified me, that I'd already crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The kiss changed everything, and nothing. We didn't speak about it, didn't acknowledge what had shifted between us. But the air felt different when we occupied the same room, charged with possibilities neither of us dared name. I threw myself into work, accepting every project my clients offered. Deadlines became armor against thinking too hard about what I was doing, who I was becoming. My inbox filled with translations, contract reviews, documents requiring the kind of meticulous attention that left no room for existential questions. But the nights told a different story. Sleep became elusive, fractured. Every sound jolted me awake. Footsteps in hallways, wind against windows, the distant slam of a door. My hands developed a tremor I couldn't control, fingers shaking when I reached for coffee or typed passwords. Stress accumulated like sediment, weighing down everything. Jessica's messages grew more insistent. 3 texts today alone. "Are you okay? When can we talk? I'm worried about you." Each one was a reminder of the life I'd abandoned, the normalcy slipping further from reach with every day I stayed in this gilded fortress. I tried calling her once, got as far as hearing her voice say hello before panic closed my throat and I hung up. What could I possibly say that wouldn't be a lie? The investigation into the fake vendors I'd identified moved faster than expected. Franco appeared at my door 4 days after that kiss, tablet in hand, expression grimmer than usual. We traced the companies. All of them lead back to a network of shell corporations registered in Delaware and the Caymans. He showed me layers of ownership structures, each more convoluted than the last. But we found the connection. They're controlled through intermediaries by someone inside the organization. Who? Sergio. The name dropped like a stone. Matteo's cousin. His underboss. Someone he's known since childhood. My stomach twisted. I'd seen them together. Seen what looked like genuine affection. Family. There's more. Franco pulled up bank records. The money diverted through these fake companies? We tracked where it went. Payment to a trucking company that provided the vehicle used in the assassination attempt. Payment to the driver's offshore account. Payment to the bomb manufacturer. Sergio has been funding his own coup using Matteo's money. Does Matteo know? He's convening an emergency council meeting tonight. You should stay in your suite. I should have listened. Should have stayed hidden behind locked doors while they handled business I didn't understand. Instead, I found myself drawn to the corridor outside the main conference room an hour later, pulse hammering as voices rose beyond the heavy doors. "You're accusing me?" Sergio's voice carried fury and wounded pride. "I've bled for this family, given everything while you sit in your mansion playing philosopher king. The evidence is irrefutable." Matteo's tone stayed controlled, deadly calm. "The accounts trace directly to companies you established. Through Anthony, he handles all our finances, controls every system. If money is missing, look to the man who moves it, not the one who... Don't." Anthony's voice cracked. "Don't you dare try to... Try to what? Expose your incompetence? Your gambling debts that make you vulnerable to... Enough." Matteo's command silenced them both. "Franco, show them the additional evidence." Silence stretched. Then Anthony spoke, voice hollow. "He has documents. From years ago. Small amounts I took to cover debts. He's been blackmailing me for months, forcing me to facilitate the transfers, threatening my family if I refused. You're pathetic." Sergio's contempt dripped venom. "Blaming me for your weakness. I'm telling the truth. The truth is that Matteo has become compromised, emotional, bringing an outsider into our home. giving her access to sensitive information, risking everything we've built for. Careful. Mateo's voice dropped to something dangerous. Very careful how you finish that sentence. She's a liability. Everyone sees it. You're distracted, making decisions based on sentiment rather than strategy. The organization deserves better than a leader who... The crack of a fist meeting a table silenced whatever came next. You will not speak of her again. Each word was steel. You will not think of her, look at her, or acknowledge her existence. Is that understood? Through the slight gap in the door, I saw Sergio's expression. Calculation, masquerading as submission. Of course. My apologies. But his eyes promised violence. The meeting dissolved into tense silence. I retreated before anyone discovered me, heart racing, Sergio's words echoing. Liability, weakness, distraction. He wasn't wrong. My presence had complicated everything, made Mateo vulnerable in ways he couldn't afford. I was pacing my suite when Mateo appeared without knocking, tension radiating from every line of his body. The cut on his cheek from days ago had nearly healed, just a thin pink line bisecting his face. You heard. Not a question. Some of it. Hannah, he's right. I wrapped my arms around myself. I'm making you vulnerable. Your own cousin thinks you're compromised because of me. My cousin is trying to kill me and steal my organization. His opinion is worthless, but his reasoning isn't wrong. I shouldn't be here. I'm not part of your world. I don't understand the rules. And my presence is giving your enemies ammunition. He crossed the room in 3 strides, hands framing my face with startling gentleness. Stop. Mateo, do you know what I saw the night you saved me? His thumb traced my cheekbone. Someone who acted without hesitation, who saw danger and ran toward it instead of away, who asked questions and demanded answers and refused to be intimidated by men with guns. You fascinate me, challenge me, make me remember why I wanted something better than the empire my father built. That's not enough reason to risk everything. It's the only reason that matters. His forehead pressed to mine. I've spent 15 years building power through fear and control. You walked into my life and showed me something I'd forgotten existed. Genuine courage, integrity. Someone who sees me as human rather than a weapon. This is insane. Completely. His mouth found mine. Urgent and desperate. But I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you. The kiss deepened, swallowing my protests. His hands tangled in my hair. Mine clutched his shoulders, and reason dissolved into pure sensation. We stumbled toward the bed, shedding inhibitions and clothing in equal measure, mapping skin with hungry fingers and desperate mouths. Afterward, tangled in sheets with his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, reality crept back. What happens now? I whispered. We find proof that links Sergio directly to the attacks. Then I remove him from power. And if you can't? His arms tightened around me. Then I do it anyway. Sleep finally came, deep and dreamless, until the explosion shattered the night. The blast threw me from the bed. Glass rained inward as windows imploded. Mateo had me pressed against the floor before my ears stopped ringing, his body shielding mine as gunfire erupted somewhere below. Stay down. He was already moving, grabbing weapons from places I hadn't known existed. A gun from the nightstand. A knife from beneath the mattress. He was dressed in seconds, lethal grace replacing the lover who'd held me. What's happening? They're inside. The door burst open. Franco appeared, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. Southeast breach. 6 hostiles. Maybe more. Security system was disabled from inside. Sergio? Already evacuated. Convenient timing. Mateo's jaw clenched. Get Hannah to the safe room. Use the service corridors. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. He caught my face, kissed me hard and fast. Franco will keep you safe. Stay alive. That's an order. Then he was gone, disappearing into chaos with a control that terrified me more than the attack itself. Franco pressed a gun into my hands. Do you know how to use this? No. Point and shoot if anyone gets past me. Come on. We ran through hallways I'd never seen. Servants' passages designed for invisibility. Behind us, gunfire echoed. Shouts. The controlled violence of men trained to kill. The safe room was steel and concrete, hidden behind a false wall in the wine cellar. Franco sealed us inside, activating systems that bathed everything in emergency lighting. He'll be fine, Franco said, reading my expression. Mateo has survived worse. Has he survived betrayal from family? Franco's silence was answer enough. We waited in that underground tomb while war raged above, and I prayed to gods I didn't believe in that Mateo would walk through that door again, because somewhere between saving his life and surrendering to this impossible attraction, I'd done something catastrophically stupid. I'd fallen for a man whose world ran on violence and blood, and now I might lose him to it. The gunfire stopped after what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. Silence descended, broken only by distant voices and the ringing in my ears. Franco remained positioned at the door, weapon ready, every muscle coiled. His radio crackled. All clear. Hostiles neutralized. Boss is requesting Hannah. My legs nearly gave out with relief. The estate looked like a war zone. Broken glass crunched under my feet as Franco led me through corridors marked by bullet holes and bloodstains. Men moved efficiently, already cleaning, already erasing evidence. Bodies were being removed through service exits. This wasn't the first time they'd handled aftermath. Mateo stood in his study, conferring with 3 men I recognized from the dinner. Blood streaked his shirt, but he moved without hesitation. When he saw me, something cracked in his controlled expression. "You're unhurt?" Franco kept me safe. I crossed to him, hands trembling now that adrenaline was fading. What happened? 6 men breached the southeast perimeter using codes that disabled our security system. His jaw tightened. Internal codes. Someone let them in. Franco approached, tablet in hand. I pulled the system logs. The override came from Anthony's credentials. Time stamped 2 hours before the attack. Anthony. The nervous man who'd sweated through dinner, who'd avoided looking at Sergio. Where is he? Mateo's voice dropped to something lethal. We found him in his quarters. He's cooperative. The interrogation room was underground, windowless, designed for purposes I tried not to imagine. Anthony sat at a metal table, wrists zip-tied, face pale and slick with perspiration. When we entered, he flinched violently. "I didn't know," he said immediately. "I swear to God, I didn't know they'd attack tonight." He said it was just precautionary access, in case... Who? Mateo remained standing, looming. Who gave you the order? Anthony's eyes darted between us. When they landed on me, something crumbled. She shouldn't be here. This isn't... Answer the question. Sergio. The name broke on a sob. Sergio has been blackmailing me for months. Years ago, I took money. Small amounts to cover gambling debts. I documented everything intending to pay it back, but he found the records. Said he'd expose me, that my family would pay if I didn't cooperate. Franco set the tablet on the table, pulling up financial records. These transfers. The fake vendors Hannah identified. You facilitated them. He forced me. Every month new instructions. Move money here, create accounts there, disable the security feature. I kept thinking if I just did what he asked, he'd let me go. Anthony's voice cracked. But it kept escalating. The bomb. The truck. Tonight. I'm an accountant, not a killer. I didn't sign up for murder. But you participated. Mateo's words were ice. How many people died because you were too weak to stand up to him? I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. What's his endgame? Anthony wiped his face with bound hands. Complete takeover. He's been building support for months, promising captains more territory, more revenue if they back him. Says you've gone soft, that you're compromised by... His eyes flicked to me again. By what? I asked, even though I knew. By her. An outsider. Someone who has your ear, your protection. Sergio's been telling everyone you're making emotional decisions instead of strategic ones. That you're risking everything for someone who doesn't belong in this world. The words hit harder than they should have. Because they weren't entirely wrong. Mateo's hand found mine, fingers lacing through despite the audience. How many captains has he turned? Maybe half. The ones who think the old ways were better. More violent, more aggressive expansion. Anthony's shoulders slumped. He plans to call a vote. Force you out or kill me if the vote doesn't go his way. Yes. Silence stretched, heavy with implications. Then Mateo looked at Franco. Secure Anthony in the east wing. Guarded. No communication with anyone. He pulled me toward the door. We need to talk. Now. Back in his study, with Franco and 2 other senior men I'd been introduced to but couldn't recall, Matteo spread documents across his desk. Financial records, security logs, communications Anthony had provided. He's been planning this for at least 8 months, Franco said, pointing to early transfers. Started small, building his war chest. The assassination attempts were meant to look external, but if those failed, he had the internal support to challenge you openly. How do we prove it? One of the other men asked. Anthony's testimony won't be enough. Half our people already think he's incompetent. They'll believe Sergio's version. We need to catch him in the act, Franco said. Something undeniable. I'd been studying the timeline, the pattern of escalation. He's going to move soon. Maybe days. The attack tonight failed. Anthony's been discovered. He knows his window is closing. All eyes turned to me. She's right, Matteo said. Sergio will accelerate. He has to, before we can consolidate against him. So we give him an opportunity. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. Make him think he has an opening. Catch him when he acts. That's incredibly risky, Franco said. But I could see him calculating. Less risky than civil war. I pointed to the list of captains Sergio had allegedly turned. If we just accuse him without proof, you split the organization down the middle. Some will believe you, some won't. But if you catch him red-handed, trying to kill you or betray you to enemies, nobody can dispute that. Matteo studied me with an expression I couldn't read. You're suggesting I use myself as bait. I'm suggesting you control the narrative instead of reacting to his. I pulled up Anthony's communications. He's been spreading the story that you're weak, compromised. So prove you're not. Set a trap he can't resist. And if it goes wrong, then we make sure it doesn't. The planning stretched through the night. Every detail mattered. Every contingency needed coverage. Franco argued for keeping me out of it entirely, but Matteo overruled him. She's the one who spotted the financial fraud, he said. Her analytical eye is why we're even having this conversation. If there are details we're missing, she'll find them. So I stayed, contributing where I could, learning more about the organization's structure than I'd ever wanted to know. Captains, territories, revenue streams both legitimate and criminal. The web was vast, complex, and Sergio had been methodically poisoning it from within. We need to call a full council meeting, one of the senior men suggested. Force everything into the open. No, I interjected. That gives Sergio time to prepare, to spin the story. You need him off balance, caught in a moment where his instincts override his planning. What do you suggest? An idea was forming, risky but potentially perfect. Anthony said Sergio told the captains Matteo is compromised because of me. So use that. Make it look like I'm the weak point he can exploit. Matteo's expression darkened immediately. Absolutely not. Listen, you announce you're moving me to a secondary location for my safety. Somewhere outside the estate, less protected. Sergio won't be able to resist. He'll see it as the perfect opportunity to prove you're weak, that prioritizing me over security is a fatal flaw. You're describing yourself as bait. I'm describing strategy. You control the location, the security, everything. But to Sergio, it looks like you're making an emotional mistake. The kind of mistake that justifies his coup. Franco rubbed his jaw, clearly torn. It could work. If we pick the location carefully, wire it properly for surveillance, position our people strategically. No. Matteo's voice was steel. I'm not putting Hannah in danger to catch him. I'm already in danger. The words burst out sharper than intended. I've been in danger since the moment I pushed you out of the way of that truck. At least this way, we're controlling it. She has a point, Franco said quietly. Don't. Matteo turned on him. Don't tell me she has a point. You need irrefutable proof, I pressed. Something nobody can deny or rationalize. Sergio attacking me, coming after your supposed weakness personally, that's the kind of arrogance that will turn even his supporters against him. The argument continued for another hour. But eventually, reluctantly, Matteo agreed. Not because he wanted to, but because the logic was inescapable. We needed Sergio to act, and I was the perfect trigger. The plan took shape over 3 days. A secondary property would be announced, a supposed safe house outside the city. I'd be moved there publicly, with minimal security to make it look like an easy target. In reality, the location would be fortified and monitored, with Mateo's best people positioned to respond instantly. 48 hours maximum, Mateo said, the night before we'd execute the plan. We were alone in his study, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. If nothing happens by then, we extract you and try something else. It'll happen sooner. I'd been studying Sergio's pattern of behavior, the way he moved. He's impulsive when he thinks he has an advantage. He'll jump at this. Mateo pulled me close, forehead resting against mine. If anything goes wrong, it won't. Hannah, we've planned for everything. Franco's people are the best. You'll be close enough to respond in seconds. I cupped his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palms. This ends tomorrow, one way or another. This ends. I'm terrified of losing you. Then make sure you don't. We spent that night wrapped around each other, memorizing touch and taste like it might be the last time. When dawn came, we didn't speak about what could go wrong, only what had to go right. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait for Sergio to walk into it. The safe house was a lie wrapped in truth. An actual property Mateo owned, but fortified beyond anything visible from outside. Cameras in every corner, armed men positioned in adjacent buildings, Franco coordinating from a command center 2 blocks away. I was the rabbit in the trap. And somewhere out there, the wolf was circling. I'd been moved publicly, driven through Chicago in a convoy small enough to look vulnerable. 2 SUVs instead of 5. Guards who appeared competent but not overwhelming. The message was clear. Mateo had prioritized discretion over security, emotion over strategy. Exactly what Sergio needed to believe. The house itself was modern, glass and steel overlooking the river. Beautiful and exposed. I'd been instructed to stay visible, to move past windows, to look like someone trying to pretend normalcy while fear ate at her edges. Not hard to fake. The fear was real, even if the vulnerability wasn't. Mateo wanted to be here, argued for hours that he should be in the house with me. That splitting up was too risky, but Franco convinced him otherwise. Sergio needed to see weakness, and Mateo's absence sold that better than anything. So I waited. Laptop open, pretending to work while my pulse hammered. The earpiece Franco had given me stayed silent, but I knew they were watching, knew every angle was covered. The attack came at dusk. Not subtle, not careful. 6 men approached from different vectors, moving with military precision that suggested training and funding. Sergio wasn't sending amateurs. Contact. Franco's voice crackled in my ear. Stay exactly where you are. Do not move from that room. I'd been positioned in a second-floor study, deliberately visible through windows, but with reinforced walls and a panic room behind a bookshelf. The perfect bait that could be extracted instantly. Glass shattered downstairs. Footsteps pounded through the entry. Professional clearing patterns, weapons drawn. They moved fast, efficient. Hannah Reed, a voice called from below, accented and cold. We know you're here. Mr. Versiani would like to speak with you. I didn't answer. Franco had been explicit. Silence until they were fully committed. The men spread through the house. I heard them clearing rooms, communicating in terse phrases, getting closer. Then Mateo's voice in my ear, tight with controlled fury. We have Sergio. Intercepted his vehicle 3 blocks from your location. Franco, initiate extraction. Everything happened simultaneously. The men reached my floor just as Franco's team breached from multiple entry points. Flashbangs, shouted commands. The professional soldiers Sergio had sent found themselves outmatched and surrounded. I was pulled into the panic room by 2 of Mateo's guards, the reinforced door sealing with a hydraulic hiss. Through the small monitor inside, I watched Franco's team systematically neutralize every hostile. No deaths, I noted. Mateo wanted them alive, able to testify. 20 minutes later, Franco himself opened the panic room. Clear. Mateo wants you at the compound. Now. The drive back felt surreal. Chicago passed in streaks of light, my hands still trembling with residual adrenaline. Mateo had called a full council meeting, Franco explained. Every captain, every senior member of the organization. They were convening as we spoke. Sergio? I asked. In custody, secured. He's been demanding to speak with Mateo since we took him. The compound blazed with lights when we arrived. The main conference room had been converted into something between a courtroom and a war room. 30 men filled the space, all wearing expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the violence they were capable of. Mateo stood at the head of the table, and when he saw me, relief cracked through his composure. But he didn't cross to me, didn't break the formality of what was happening. This was business, and business demanded precision. "Hannah, wait in the observation room with the technical team," he said. "Franco will coordinate." The observation room shared a wall with the conference room, separated only by one-way glass and sophisticated audio equipment. I could see everything, hear everything. Mateo had positioned me as witness, not participant. Sergio was brought in under guard. His suit was rumpled, lip split from when they'd taken him, but he moved with arrogance intact. When he saw the assembled captains, something flickered in his expression. Not fear. Calculation. "Cousin," he addressed Mateo with familiar contempt. "Quite the production. Are we really doing this? Sit down." Mateo's voice carried absolute authority. The presentation began methodically. Franco displayed financial records on screens around the room, the fake vendors, the diverted millions, the paper trail that led directly to Sergio's network of shell companies. Anthony was brought in, giving testimony that confirmed every detail. I watched the captains' faces. Some showed shock. Others, careful neutrality. A few looked vindicated, like they'd suspected but hadn't dared speak. Sergio laughed. "Anthony is a desperate man looking to save himself. He managed our finances, controlled every system. If money is missing, the fault lies with him, not with the assassination attempts." Mateo interrupted, pulling up new evidence. "The truck driver, the bomb. Both paid through accounts you control. We have bank records, testimony from captured operatives. Men you hired specifically to kill me. Circumstantial. Fabricated. Then explain tonight." Mateo played the footage we'd captured. Sergio's vehicle, pulled over 3 blocks from my location. Armed men who'd attacked the safe house, all carrying phones with messages from a number registered to Sergio. "You sent 6 soldiers to kidnap or kill Hannah. Why?" Sergio's expression hardened. "Because she's made you weak." The room went silent. "You've compromised everything we built for an outsider. A woman who knows nothing of our world, our rules. You've given her access to sensitive information, made decisions based on sentiment rather than strategy." Sergio stood, addressing the captains directly. "Look at him. He's distracted, emotional, making choices that risk all of us. The organization deserves better than a leader who prioritizes his feelings over our survival." Several captains shifted. I saw uncertainty cross faces that had been hardening against Sergio. "She's a liability," Sergio pressed. "Everyone sees it." This meeting, these accusations, they're desperate attempts to deflect from Mateo's weakness. He chose her over all of you, and that choice is going to destroy everything our fathers built. Through the glass, I saw Mateo's hands clench. Franco touched his earpiece, then looked directly at me through the observation window. He mouthed, "Now." I grabbed the laptop containing what I'd found, pushing through the door into the conference room. All eyes turned. "Hannah," Mateo started. "He's not wrong." I set the laptop on the table, pulling up documents. "I am an outsider. I don't understand your world, your traditions. But I understand documents, financial records. And what I found shows that Sergio's betrayal goes beyond stealing from you." I displayed the contracts I'd uncovered during the planning phase, buried in the data Anthony had provided. These are preliminary agreements with the Sinaloa cartel. Dated over 4 months ago, Sergio wasn't just planning to take over. He was planning to sell you out. Look at the terms. He'd promised them 3 of your major territories, your shipping routes through the port, and operational intelligence about your entire network. The room erupted. Captains surged to their feet, shouting over each other. The Sinaloa cartel was everyone's enemy, an external threat they'd spent years keeping at bay. He was going to trade your lives, your operations, everything you built, for their backing in a coup. I pulled up communications next, and these messages show he'd already started providing information. Shipment schedules, guard rotations, names of your families. Sergio lunged toward me. Two guards intercepted him before he moved 3 feet, slamming him back into his chair. "You've destroyed us," one of the captains said, voice shaking with rage. "Made us all targets." Anthony confirmed it, his voice hollow. "It's all true. He made me facilitate the communications, said it was insurance. I didn't know the extent until recently. That's why I finally cooperated with Franco." Matteo walked slowly to where Sergio sat pinned by guards. "You called me weak for choosing someone who challenged me to be better than our fathers. But you chose to betray every man in this room for power you weren't strong enough to earn. That's not strength, Sergio. That's cowardice." He turned to the assembled captains. "I'm calling for a vote. Does Sergio Verciani retain any position in this organization? Or is he cast out?" The vote was unanimous. Every hand raised for expulsion. "Then it's done." Matteo's voice was final. "Sergio Verciani is no longer part of this family. What happens to traitors is not for this room to decide. Franco, take him." As Sergio was dragged out, still shouting accusations and curses, Matteo addressed the captains one more time. "I won't apologize for Hannah. She saved my life, saved our organization by catching what we all missed. If that makes me weak, then I accept the judgment. But I'm still standing. Sergio isn't, and anyone who questions where my priorities lie can remember that when making their own choices." The meeting dissolved, captains filing out in tense clusters. Some approached Matteo with pledges of continued loyalty. Others left in silence. When the room finally cleared, Matteo crossed to me. "You didn't have to do that. Put yourself in front of them." "Yes, I did. This ends today. No more questions about my role. No more whispers about me making you weak." I met his eyes. They saw me stand up. Now they know I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I. He pulled me close, forehead resting against mine. "Thank you. For everything." Outside the windows, dawn was breaking over Chicago. Somewhere in the city, my life was still waiting. But standing there, in the aftermath of violence and betrayal, I realized I wasn't sure I wanted that life back anymore. This world had claimed me. For better or worse, I'd chosen it. Chosen him. And there was no going back. The aftermath lasted weeks. Sergio's fate was handled quietly, efficiently, in ways I didn't ask about, and Matteo didn't volunteer. Anthony was different. He'd cooperated, provided evidence, saved lives by finally breaking. The council voted for exile instead of execution. Permanent, monitored, stripped of everything he'd built. I watched him leave the compound under armed escort, looking decades older than when I'd first met him. Franco's promotion to underboss happened with formal ceremony. Matteo presented him before the entire organization, publicly declaring trust and gratitude. Watching Franco accept, seeing the respect in every captain's eyes, I understood how carefully Matteo was rebuilding. Every gesture mattered. Every word carried weight. The estate transformed into command central. Meetings stretched through nights. Captains arrived for private conversations, emerging hours later with renewed commitment, or removed from positions entirely. Matteo was ruthlessly thorough, examining every operation, every loyalty, every potential crack in his rebuilt foundation. I stayed, not because I had to, but because leaving felt impossible. My apartment existed somewhere in Chicago, untouched and waiting, but the woman who'd lived there didn't anymore. Work kept me anchored. My clients never missed a deadline. I translated contracts and analyzed documents from a suite that had become my office, maintaining professional reputation while living in a world my colleagues couldn't imagine. But Jessica deserved better than silence. I called her on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Sergio's capture. Her voice cracked when she answered. "Hannah? Oh my God, where have you been?" "I've been going crazy. I almost filed a missing persons report. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." The words felt inadequate. "Can we meet? In person? I need to explain. We met for lunch at a restaurant Matteo owned. Though Jessica didn't know that. Franco's people had swept it twice, positioned themselves at strategic tables, created the illusion of normalcy while maintaining absolute control. Jessica looked thinner, worried. She grabbed my hands the moment I sat down. "What happened to you?" "It's complicated. That's not an answer." Her grip tightened. "You disappeared, sent cryptic messages, wouldn't take my calls. I thought you were dead, Hannah, or kidnapped, or I met someone. The partial truth felt safer than the whole. Someone with security issues. Dangerous people were involved. I had to stay out of sight for my safety. The man from the accident? Her eyes widened. The one you saved? I nodded. No point denying what she'd already guessed. Who is he? Someone powerful. Someone who lives differently than we do. I chose words carefully. But someone I care about. Someone who's changed my life in ways I'm still processing. Jessica studied my face with the intensity of someone who'd known me since college. You're different. Not just stressed or scared. Different. Like you've seen things you can't unsee. Yeah, my throat tightened. That's exactly it. Are you safe? As safe as I can be in his world. That's not reassuring. I know. I squeezed her hands. But I'm choosing it. That's what I need you to understand. I'm not trapped. I'm not coerced. I'm making a choice, even though it's complicated and scary and nothing like what I planned. She was quiet for a long time, processing. Then, do you love him? Yes. And he treats you well? Better than I deserve. Then I'll try to understand. Her voice wavered. But you have to promise to stay in my life. I can't lose my best friend because she fell for someone dangerous. You won't. I promise. The lunch stretched into afternoon. We talked about everything except the specifics I couldn't share. She updated me on her job, her family, the mundane details of a life that felt foreign now. I told her about translation work, about learning new things, about feeling challenged in ways I hadn't expected. When we parted, she hugged me hard. Be careful. And call me more than once a month, okay? I will. Matteo was waiting when I returned. He looked up from documents spread across his desk. Expression unreadable. How did it go? She's worried. But she'll accept it. I sank into the chair across from him. Eventually. You could still go back, you know. To your old life. I'd ensure you were safe. Set you up anywhere you wanted. Is that what you want? What I want is irrelevant. This is about what you need. I stood, moving around the desk to where he sat. Then ask me what I need. His hands found my waist, pulling me close. What do you need, Hannah? I need to stop pretending I can go back. I need to accept that I've changed, that this world has claimed me whether I planned it or not. I cupped his face, feeling stubble rough against my palms. And I need you to give me a real role here. Not protection, not a comfortable prison, a purpose. I've been thinking about that. He pulled a folder from his desk. This is a proposal. Official position as strategic consultant, focusing on international negotiations and contract analysis. You'd have authority to veto deals that look suspicious, review all major agreements, advise on cross-border operations. Your linguistic skills and analytical mind are exactly what we need to expand legitimately. I read through the documents. Salary, benefits, clear job description. It looked like any corporate position, except for the implicit understanding of what the organization actually did. I have conditions. Name them. I maintain my independence. Keep some legitimate translation clients as cover and because I want to. I'm not property or trophy. I'm a partner with equal voice in decisions that affect me. I met his eyes. And if I ever want out, truly out, I can leave without consequence. Agreed. All of it. No hesitation. No negotiation. You saved my life, Hannah. Then you saved my organization. I owe you everything. The least I can offer is respect and autonomy. Then yes, I accept. The kiss sealed it. Not just the position, but everything it represented. A future I hadn't planned but was choosing anyway. 3 months later, my office in the compound felt like it had always been mine. Mahogany desk, walls lined with reference books in 6 languages, windows overlooking gardens where I sometimes walked while thinking through complex negotiations. The captains nodded respectfully when I passed. Franco consulted me on suspicious contracts. Matteo trusted my judgment without question. I still translated for my old clients. Maintained that connection to normalcy, to the person I'd been. But increasingly, my real work happened here, reviewing expansion plans, analyzing partnership proposals, identifying red flags in documents that would have cost millions if missed. Jessica called weekly. We met monthly, always in controlled locations. She didn't know everything, but she knew enough. Accepted that her friend had chosen a different path. Tonight, Mateo and I stood on the private balcony of our suite, looking over Chicago's glittering skyline. His arm wrapped around my waist, familiar and right. "The European expansion proposal," I said, leaning into his warmth. "I finished reviewing the contracts. Milan looks promising, but the Frankfurt connections are questionable. I'd recommend holding on those until we can verify their credentials better." "Noted. I trust your assessment." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Have you thought about the Italy trip? 2 weeks, just us. Milan, Rome, the coast. Mixing business with pleasure? Always." His hand found mine, fingers lacing together. "Though mostly pleasure, you've earned a vacation." We both have. The city stretched endlessly below us, 1,000 lights representing 1,000 lives. Somewhere down there was the woman I'd been, translating contracts in a tiny apartment, worried about rent and deadlines and normal things. That woman had saved a stranger from a truck and changed everything, had chosen curiosity over fear, action over paralysis, had fallen for a dangerous man and decided the risk was worth the reward. I didn't regret it. Any of it. "What are you thinking?" Mateo asked, reading my silence. "That I should have been terrified. Should have run the moment I realized what you were." "Why didn't you?" "Because terror and fascination feel remarkably similar. And because you saw me, really saw me, in ways no one else ever had." I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. "I chose this. Chose you. Chose a life that's complicated and dangerous. And nothing like what I planned. And I'd choose it again." "Good." His mouth found mine, familiar and electric. "Because I'm not letting you go." Possessive. Completely. We stood there as night deepened. Two people who'd found each other through chaos and decided to build something from it. The future was uncertain, danger always lurking at the edges. But we'd face it together, partners in every sense. And somehow, impossibly, that was more than I'd ever dreamed of having.